Hey guys, welcome to the Residents of Evil podcast, episode 2. Today we have a lot of Resident Evil news to go over. We have some topics, some questions and answers with you guys. But let's introduce ourselves. I am JJ. I am the creator of the Residents of Evil. I make YouTube videos and I stream on the Residents of Evil YouTube page. And I am an editor on the Remake Resident Evil 2 community page on Facebook.
Hi guys, AJ. I am the admin and founder of the Resident Evil 1.5 community page, and I am also on Survivor Reborn, which is a Tomb Raider fan site.
My name is Tony. I'm also an admin on the Resident Evil 1.5 page. I'm also a full-time photographer doing anything from cosplay to weddings, portraits, anything like that. I can do it. I also run a video game channel on YouTube called New to Retro Reviews. I review both old and new games and also do Let's Plays on Twitch once in a while.
And I'm Ollie Pride from Ollie Pride Gaming, Twitch broadcaster and editor for Residents of Evil. You guys can check me on twitch.tv/Ollie Pride Gaming. Soon to be possibly taking over the ROE Twitch channel as well.
Yeah, that'll be probably next week. We'll definitely let everyone know, though. Okay, so I guess we can get right into it. There was a lot of Resident Evil news. One of the biggest things that came out over the last week was that Capcom officially announced that that Redfield character that everybody was fighting each other over was actually Chris Redfield in a post they made on Twitter and Facebook saying Chris Redfield will be I can't remember exactly how it went, but something about he's hunting somebody in the upcoming Not a Hero DLC. And that was pretty big news because, like I said, that was a big discussion between the Resident Evil community. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I'm not really sure what to think of it yet because Capcom has a tendency of making people believe it's one character that it ends up being a clone down the line. I mean, we had it with Resident Evil 6 too much. I personally don't mind his look. He kind of reminds me more of Remake Chris, like I was saying on the 1.5 page. A lot of people are pissed off saying it doesn't look like him. I don't know. He looks like Remake Chris to me. But as far as like the clone thing goes, it's Capcom. You always gotta expect the unexpected.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think about it, Tony?
For a while, I thought it was I believe I talked about this in the last podcast, or at least with somebody else, but I always thought maybe it was like a cousin or something like that because he didn't necessarily say like his full name. So I thought it was like a cousin or something like that, maybe like expand, because you look at all the Resident Evil characters that are out there and the families that are involved, and you don't know too much about many, and some, you don't even know their backgrounds at all, perhaps. So the fact that it never got brought in is just like, oh, okay, so they might just be throwing a curveball here, and there's another Redfield out there because everybody loves the Redfields. So, and then everybody says, oh, well, that can't be him, even though they're saying it is. And I look at it like this. Pretty much every time we've seen Chris, he is changed somewhat dramatically. You had the original Chris from RE1. They brought him back in Code Veronica. He looked a little bit different, Then you had Resident Evil 5 Chris, he kept the same appearance in Umbrella Chronicles, and then in Darkside Chronicles, he had his Code Veronica look towards the Game of Oblivion style. Yeah. And so it's always changing, and you can't keep the models the same and a lot because it might not transfer well to next gen graphics and everything. And since this happens a couple years after 6 and everything like that, who knows why the changes happened.
For sure. Ollie, what did you think about Chris being confirmed for Resident Evil 7?
I find it weird that he shows up and says, I'm Redfield. He has no idea who you are or who Redfield is. Why would he care? Yeah. and another thing is, it's possible that this is our Chris Redfield, whatever his backstory is going to be and why he's working with this weird version of Umbrella. But it's very possible that it's just because of the rendering system they're using now and capturing their actors. This is just the guy that's playing them, and that's what he looks like.
For sure. Like Tony, I thought he was definitely going to be a relative. I figured if this was Chris Redfield, he would have just announced himself, hey, I'm Chris Redfield. So I thought that was kind of weird. So I was like, oh, maybe this is a relative they're going to introduce. It wouldn't really break up the canon because they never said they didn't have any, cousins. But then I made the theory of saying it was actually their brother. That was a pretty crazy theory. But yeah, I know that we don't have a solid Chris. And when I did see this picture compared, like you were saying, AJ, to the Resident Evil Remake Chris, it looked a lot more like an older version of him.
That's the thing, too. I think they're looking too much into it. I mean, it's Capcom. They never live up to what they're actually saying. There's a lot of people on the page right now saying it's Hunk.
Yeah, a
know,
lot. I see that a lot actually too. I don't know about that one too much.
I don't know. I personally think people are looking into it too much. It's probably going to be some kind of brainwashing nonsense again, or a clone.
Yeah, I really hope it's I hope it's not a clone. I feel like when you start introducing clones, then it just kind of leaves you open to do basically anything you want in these games. It just takes out the you could just keep cloning people and have a clone army, and
Yeah, right.
Then you have the Resident Evil live action movies at that point.
I don't want that in Resident Evil games.
That's another thing. Like, we literally just got done with all these, bullshit Resident Evil movies. Can we please let go of the cloning?
Yeah, and it would be
Separate the movies from
weird
the
if it is Hunk. Again, why is he announcing himself as Redfield? What's the misdirection for? Because this guy doesn't know who you are.
That's true. He doesn't know who you are. A lot of people are saying that he's just working for Umbrella and he's trying to throw people off and give Chris a bad name, but that doesn't make too much sense,
I
does
think
it?
that's
Or he's
another
being
thing.
forced into the position. Maybe they have Claire, or like I said, maybe a cousin that's doing it out of spite, or they have somebody that's close to him. Maybe they have Jill. Somebody's being held captive at one point. And he's being forced to work for the corporation.
That's very possible.
See, if they would have went with the soft reboot thing, they could have actually had this set 20 years or something, 10 years, 20 years in the future. This actually could have been Chris Redfield's son, and it could have worked out.
I would have liked that.
What if
I
it
think a
is
lot of
sort
people
of a
would like
reboot?
that, actually.
Yeah.
And what if it is they're redoing the canon behind it? Maybe it is some sort of soft reboot.
I mean,
Yeah,
you got to think, too, the characters that we have in Resident Evil, they don't stay the same age. They constantly age. Leon's up there, Chris is up there, Jill's up there, Claire is definitely up there. She looks like a man now. Come on.
That wasn't nice.
Come
Why
on,
don't you talk
everybody
bad
says
about
it.
my Claire?
Everybody says it.
He's
was
talking
a
about the
totally
Revelations,
required-
Claire. Am I right? You're talking about Revelations,
Yeah,
Claire?
Revelations 2, Claire. I don't know what they did to her nose, but everybody
was-
knows what I'm talking about.
Wasn't she modeled off an actress, though?
No, I don't.
He was modeled
I
off
think-
the Grumpy Cat.
Yeah.
Well, if it was
You're
modeled off
coming
an
back
actress,
to
I apologize for HA,
The
but
point I'm trying to make is, the characters, they age, and we're not always going to have these characters as the series goes, progress. And eventually, some of them are going to get killed off. So we do need to bring more new characters in.
I agree. I don't think I would have liked a soft reboot just because they have so much unfinished business with other characters, and it's not, those characters' fault that the story got into an overly action, sort of convoluted mess, I want to
Right,
say.
don't take away the people that we love just because you
Yeah.
guys messed it up.
There's so many things they could still do with it, and I wouldn't want a soft reboot, but at the same time, I would like it to jump some time and have it be the son or whatever, because these characters are getting old. But I guess what you were saying, Ollie, that they're actually modeling characters off of people now, and what you were saying, Tony, with new engines, one character could look completely different with different lighting and everything like that. I can kind of see where they would have got this look. It's a little drastic, but I can make the comparisons when you factor in those things with it.
Now, we're not saying it's a bad look. I mean, he looks like, if this is Chris and we have to deal with this as Chris from now on, it's not bad. It just isn't what we know.
Yeah, it's
I
just,
got
I mean, to me, he kind of just looks a little too young and everything, because, you saw how he looked. He had more of a square head now, because he's older in, Resident Evil 5 and 6 and everything, and even in Revelations, so it's just, the sudden change of him going back to having, a kind of like a narrow face and everything like that was kind of the throw-off for me.
It just kind of gets me because we haven't had this kind of backlash, even with Jill when she, in Resident Evil 5 when she had the blonde hair and everything.
That was a big deal,
She
yeah.
was still no, it wasn't. I mean, some
To
people were
it
pissed
was,
off about
yeah. Not,
it. Some
it wasn't a big
people
deal
were
to
pissed
me.
off about it.
Yeah, but then,
But-
you find out, why she ended up having the blonde hair because of all the testing. Everyone's like,
But
oh,
it's-
okay, because that's why it was. But it took a long time for people to actually, find out that information. That was because, her skin, she was, white as hell. She was pale and everything.
That's
And
the thing that people don't know, though, is she still used her remake model.
Yeah,
that too.
yeah. And I like the remake model for that. And I also like that this Chris actually kind of looks like the remake Chris.
Well, that's what I was getting at. Like I was saying, there hasn't been, fans up in arms about a fan design or the character change until we got Claire. Everybody was up in arms about that, and the original voice actress not coming back. And now it's the same thing with Chris, but I think it's a little bit more intense.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know. I think it's like I said, it divided the community. People are arguing, but it's all publicity is good publicity.
It
So
is.
yeah, it's generating a lot of talk. I think my video about it, both my videos, the one with me saying, okay, I was wrong. It is it was confirmed as Chris, and then the one of me saying the brother theory has gotten like a ton of comments, just from people going back and forth. It's Hunk. No, it's Albert Wesker. No, it's Chris. But
I mean, people got to realize too, the DLC is going to be free.
Yeah, for sure.
Go in with an open mind and don't expect too much.
Yeah.
It's Capcom.
I think we covered a lot about Chris now. Let's get into the actual DLC itself. Is anybody aware of besides saying that Chris Redfield was going to be in it, does anybody know what else they said about it?
Well, my understanding, just from what I picked up on, is he's there, his team that he's with, they're hunting Lucas in the salt mines, and it's going to be a mix of what Lucas, his trap system that he always puts up, as well as fighting variations of the molded. And that's as far as I know, they're not allowed to kill him for one thing, so it's going to be basically a chase mission.
Yeah. No, they didn't say it was specifically going to be Lucas, but I'm pretty sure we can all assume it is going to be him. And they didn't specifically say he was going to have traps set up, but I'm pretty sure if Lucas is there, that's what we're going to get a lot of. AJ, what did you think about it?
Well, like Ollie was just saying, there really hasn't been much information released by Capcom yet. I think they're still in the planning stages for it because, like they were saying, it doesn't come out till spring. I do not think they actually announced who he's hunting down. They just said he was hunting down somebody.
Yes. You don't think, though, that they don't already have this done and they're just waiting till that, like almost done? You think it's just being set up now?
What we were going over in the other podcast, I was saying before about like how the DLC was announced not even a week after the game was out. Yeah. I think all that crap was already done. It was behind a paywall.
Yeah.
But this itself, what they're probably doing is looking for feedback from the fans to make sure they do not piss them off.
I agree. And yeah, I the paywall was the reason why I asked that question. But Tony, what did you think about the rest of what they said was going to be in the DLC?
Like I said, we haven't really been told much like everybody else had said, but my theory is, I actually think it might take place before.
That'd be interesting.
Everything. I think it's kind of like a prequel to what led up to 6, and maybe if 6 hits its 4 million mark by the end of March, maybe they'll be like, okay, you know what? We could plan some other DLC to give them a little bit more to further the story, because at the end of the game, we don't know what happens to Lucas. We technically never confront him at one point. It's just, Jack Baker breaks in there and shit like that, is that monstrosity and everything. You kill the little girl at the end, and then it's over.
I'm sorry, that sounded terrible. You killed the little girl at the end.
Well, you kind of did.
No, you did, but
you stabbed her right in the fucking neck.
Out of context.
Wait, guys. You didn't tell me Claire was in this game.
You're funny. But no, like how I see it is we didn't know what happened to him, so it would make sense if they do the DLC as a continuation of that, because if that girl was the key to pretty much everything, I don't know if it was because she had some kind of weird psychic link to a lot of them. For some reason, not for Zoe, which was weird. I never understood that. That's another thing they never explained. But if they do something before the events of Resident Evil 7, and it's where, Chris or Redfield is, you pretty much have him on a mission, and it turns out what he does, he's not a hero kind of deal. He could be different. Something major could have happened, because we're living in the world, in the Resident Evil world, we're living in the fact that there's bioterrorist attacks out there. We got people like the BSAA and TerraSave out there. Everybody's got their hands on some kind of weird virus, so something could have happened. And Chris, he even said it in Resident Evil 5. He was like, I'm no superhero to Sheva and everything, because he's kind of a legend. So I think we're kind of getting to the point where even after Pierce's death and everything, Chris tries to continue on doing what the BSA needs, and he knows that Pierce is Pierce was like, no, we need you. You're the best we got. You understand this. So something could have happened, and that's why he's considering himself not a hero anymore. Or again, I could just be pulling theories out my butt.
I actually want to add on to what Tony was just saying with the whole Pierce thing. I actually would like to see Capcom take Chris down a darker route like they were trying with 6, but they copped out of.
For sure.
There's no growth to the old characters anymore. I want to see something major happen. Originally in 6, Chris was actually supposed to die.
I would have been okay with that. Now, I really like Chris Redfield. Before people jump on me,
would have been.
But like that would have really added to the story. And you know, sometimes look at, you know, big TV shows like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead. The reason why people tune in every week is because, you know, more Game of Thrones than Walking Dead, but like big characters are dying, and it adds to the story. And when you have all these people that are just, you know, invincible, then what are the stakes? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there
That's
has to be
actually-
some kind of repercussions, something to show. They've been at this for a long time. There has to be somewhere you need to see results. You need to start seeing them, you know, dealing with these demons of what they've been fighting with for so long.
For sure.
Takes its toll, that's for sure. I mean, just look at everything everybody went through in the original Resident Evil. The 4 main survivors, Chris, Jill, Barry, and Rebecca, all that stuff. That was like a nightmare. Like, none of them had ever, like, come up across that at all. You know? And then, you know, the stuff that Jill went through in Resident Evil 3, and then when they took down Umbrella in Umbrella Chronicles, and then when she was in, we call it their Revelations, and then when she got knocked out when she dove out the window with Wesker and stuff, and all those experiments for I think 2 to 3 years she was under his control or something like that. That's a lot of psychological damage. Chris has seen a lot of people die over the years, and it's continued to get like worse and worse. So it's like, yeah, like it builds up, but you don't have these guys reaching some kind of breaking point or anything like that. You haven't done anything with their characters.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Chris is just bad luck when it comes to teams, because if, you know, the Vendetta trailer, his whole team dies again, and Leon's just bad luck when it comes to driving. Every vehicle he's ever gotten, he's crashed.
And women. He's bad luck with women too.
He's bad luck with women, yes.
This is true.
But no, I did like, AJ, like you were saying, I did like what they were doing with Chris in 6. If he would have died, it would have added to the story. And, you know, we actually would have got, I guess you could say, closure with one of these characters. I mean, what are they doing with Jill right now? I would like to see. I hope they're doing something, but
See, that's the thing. I know a lot of people on the page 1.5 are talking about they want to see what happened with Jill. I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle of it. Like, I like the fact they brought a new character in with 7, a new whole antagonist, new story, new location. I was kind of meh at first when I saw that they did actually put Chris in the ending. But like I said, I still do not think it's
Chris,
what they're marketing. They're looking for anything to get the word out right now.
Right.
Yeah. I did say they added some stuff to their post, but it really basically just says Chris Redfield returns in the free Not a Hero DLC for Resident Evil 7 this spring. Who or what is he chasing? Find out soon in a separate story. I think I got that confused with the leak that came out, but I haven't really brought up anything from the leak, and I don't really think we should, just for the fact that I don't want to spoil it for anybody. What do you guys think?
No.
Nah, we'll
Yeah, no, keep it spoiler free. Let's keep people wondering it for the moment.
Yeah, we'll leave that out. Okay, but yeah, there was
You just cut that part out.
yeah, the extra I was thinking was actually from that. So we'll leave that out, and we'll move on to the next thing I have written down here. It says Resident Evil 7 hit sales goals, but we were just talking about it, and I guess they did it. I guess Ali, you want to take that?
Okay, so projection that they had planned for when it came out was they're trying to hit 4 million sold on the end of March. And as of right now, from what I've gotten on these numbers, they're at 2.8 million. And 1 month is a long way to go to make up 1.2 million on your sales. Given it's still successful by standards, and it's the most successful game from January, even though it came out at the end of January, they're still third on the list between, as far as the series goes, on top sales. So they might make it, they might not. With the DLC coming out, the Not a Hero DLC, we might see them hit 4 million. But I feel like that 1.2 is a far stretch to reach by the end of March.
Yeah, it really is. Overall, it's doing really well. Their expectations were pretty high, but when you compare it to previous games, it's actually not that high. I hope this will bump it, but like games usually, unless word of mouth continues, they usually get to a certain point, and then it's a slow build. So it really, we won't know. You know, we'll have to let time decide.
I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot with the VR thing. They were mainly marketing as the VR experience, but people can't go out and pay like $400 for a freaking VR right now. What people are going to do is they're going to wait until the price comes down, and then the sales are going to go up again. But at the same point, I'm kind of scared that if it doesn't hit its mark for their sales goal, it's going to be Capcom's going to look at it like, oh, I guess the horror games don't sell, so let's go back to action.
Oh, yeah.
I hope they don't do something like that.
That's what I'm scared of.
They're close enough on that mark. They don't need to go and play with the system anymore. I like what they did, and I think they're on the right track, but they better not go and like redirect the series again or kill it off.
Same here, but can you really blame them if their sales don't even hit 4 million, but their action games? I mean, obviously their action games are, could be completely why they're not hitting their goals now. That turned a lot of people off to the series, but the sales were like triple compared to what they are now.
You gotta see too, they have so many series they're sitting on right now with like Dino Crisis and all that. They could be bringing them back and actually making money off them. The sad fact is the only thing that's keeping Capcom in business is Resident Evil, and that's
Monster
why they
Hunter
try
as
to,
well.
Monster Hunter's big.
Monster Hunter as well.
Let me make a point
Resident-
on the series. If we go back from what we have here, it looks like first Resident Evil hit 5 million. Resident Evil 2 was 5.7. Resident Evil 3 was 3.5. These are just the main entries. Code Veronica was 2.5. The remake was 1.3. This is GameCube remake. Resident Evil 0 GameCube was 1.2. Outbreak 1.4. Resident Evil 4 on all platforms was 6.6. Resident Evil 5 was 8 million. Resident Evil 6 was 7 million, almost 8. Let's not talk about the side ones like Operation Raccoon City, which actually had 2.6.
That's not bad at all.
That's really not. And then the remastered remakes that came out for multiple platforms again was about 1.2. So this, I mean, it's on the right track, but as you can see, there was a huge spike on 5 and 6.
And I think I think I can actually explain why that is. You got the power of, like, we saw what Resident Evil 4 did on the GameCube years ago back in 2005, and then it went on to be on the PS2 and everything like that, and it sold well on the PS2, and people were like so psyched about it. The series, even though it kind of created a little controversy for some of the older players, the fact that zombies weren't in, we had the over the shoulder view, it was still a great game and people really did enjoy it. So it's kind of like what I say, it's like the Final Fantasy effect. People knew what Final Fantasy was for years on like the Nintendo and Super Nintendo. Then you get a new console with all these graphics, and 7, whether people hate 7 or not, because I know there's a lot of people out there that do not like Final Fantasy 7, but how you look at it, it's a huge graphical leap. Kind of like why Final Fantasy 10 sold so well, because it had voice acting for the first time. It was an unrealistic, beautiful looking game by PS, even on the PS2. And people were mind blown. So that's kind of how I looked at 5, because 5 had that action hero budget look to it, but we still, we knew Wesker was coming back. We got Chris, and he's all like, steroid out and everything like that. Apparently Jill's dead. Questions were being mysteries were being thrown out, and it got people interested. And the fact that co-op was being kind of brought into this, it made people like interested in wanting to play. And then 5 was kind of like, okay, 5 did something with the story, and a lot of people liked it. Then we hear about 6, and we see how 6 is going. It looks dark, it looks freaky and everything, and then it got what it was. But because even like 3-4 years ago when the game came out, or even longer than that maybe now, people weren't as into the internet when it came to reviews. Like they were, but not like they have been for the last few years, where like everybody knows everything every second. So I think that's why 5 and 6 sold so well, because 5 kind of let people down a little bit, but there was still a mystery as to what 6 was going to be about. So I think that's why people got to try it, and they said they really enjoyed it, So I think that's why like the word of mouth and how graphics look and how they can sell games, I think that's why 5 and 6 had done so well, because 3 didn't sell as much as 2. But people loved 2 so much and everything that when 3 came out, they wanted to get it. Plus, Jill became a fan favorite even in the first game, and her following got bigger after the third one. So that's kind of why 3 was, sold as well as it did. And then you get the Dreamcast version of Code Veronica. It's like, brand new system. They're moving different. The lighting's different now. So I think that's how like you can factor this kind of stuff in of why these things are selling so well. Because 7 was like that whole thing where, all right, none of us really like 6. The series has got to do something. They're doing something different, and it got people's attention, whether it was good or bad. It got people's attention, and it got them to buy the game or the extremely expensive collector's edition stuff.
No, I think you make a very good point, and it kind of, while you were saying that, made me think, because you said everybody loved 2, so they got 3. I'm thinking maybe Resident Evil 5 and 6 were coasting off of 4 success, and Resident Evil 7 is coasting off of 6 right now. You know what I mean? Like 4 was such a
Yeah, the
big
reception
hit.
wise.
Yeah, and like 5 might have let some people down, but then 6 made the promise of going back.
Well, see, that could actually be a problem too. Like you were just saying about 4 basically leading into 5, and people were just basically piggybacking off that for sales. What could be happening here is why people aren't buying Resident Evil 7 is because they're scared that it's going to be like 6. It's going to be
that's what I'm saying.
all over the place. But there's also another aspect of it too that, Capcom kind of shot themselves in the foot with the whole in horror one time and then going into action. And now what they did is they alienated the action fans, so they're not jumping on board.
True. And there was probably a very large audience for just the Resident Evil action games.
Yep.
We say we like the horror, but there's, Resident Evil has been going on for so long. It's created tons of fans, and some of them.
It's not only that either. It's like the multiplayer. There's people who don't even know what Resident Evil is, but they bought it just to play with their friends.
Yeah, and it had. I thought, in my opinion, 5 had excellent co-op, and 6 was okay.
We don't talk about 6.
Yeah, but I had a really good time with multiplayer in 5. But yeah, so there is different people, and it was very valid points on that. And I just think that it's still a little early. I think the sales are great, but it's obviously not what they wanted. I like the direction it's going right now, so I hope they hit their sales so we can continue this. If they don't, then I guess we should be a little worried that they'd go back to action.
Well, here's a little thing from me to Capcom.
Yeah.
Capcom, you want to make your money from the action fans and the multiplayer people? Give Outbreak another chance.
Yeah, exactly. Or spin-offs. Just do action with your spin-offs.
Yeah. I know people hate Operation Raccoon City, but like Ollie was saying earlier, 2.6 million copies sold. There is fans out there, and they want it.
For sure, but that burnt a lot of people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's because Slant 6 started with a great idea. It was like, here we go. We got a great idea going. We're 40% into the game. We're going to smoke a big bag of crack, and then we're just going to run with it. And, like I said, I played that game when it first came out. I remember, I played that game when it first came out, brought it to my buddy's house and everything, and then obviously you couldn't do split screen. Thankfully, like me, he has 2 TVs in his room and everything. So we played it. And our buddy of ours joined us from his house. We beat it in one night, and we're all and we got it 2 days early too, because we ordered from Capcom and they sent them out really early. And when the game ended, we're like, "What the hell just happened?"
That's pretty much the same boat I was in. You know a game is bad when you go to GameStop to buy it, and the GameStop employee begs you not to buy it.
Well, I know I got it. I got it. I was super excited because I remember seeing all the early trailers for it. I was like, yeah, it'd be awesome to roll around with buddies, and the PvP part was the thing that got me. It's like, I want to go up against other squads in the middle of Raccoon City with all the monsters and zombies and lickers, everything running around. And I had this hardcore match. And then it just, I remember I put it in. My buddy's like, hey, I'll be home later tonight. I'll pick it up on the way home. And this is around 3 for me. I got on early, so I went home. I tried it. And within an hour, I was like, hey, dude, don't bother.
Okay, well, I guess I should bring us into the next one. Recently, there was some clickbait articles posted online about a Resident Evil Netflix show. So what do you guys think of that? Are you for that? Or who do you want to see play the characters? What?
We should also add that this news is fake. I actually did a video on it that you can find on the Residents of Evil YouTube channel. But I guess if a show was to happen, what would you like to see?
Yeah, definitely. I am more than on board for a series and a full-on movies reboot. I think I'd probably like a series more than I like a movie reboot. I think a series has more potential.
Indeed, yeah. He's right about that. For years, I've always been saying it because I had seen these amazing artists on DA who draw on anime style type stuff, and it's not like your chibi princess kind of stuff of anime. It's the style and the shadowing and the art style of Cowboy Bebop, something like that. An Outlaw Star with the way it was drawn. And I was like, you know what? I think if Resident Evil went the an anime route, I think it would do really good. I always thought that because as a series, it has so much to work with. Especially now. But I always thought when I saw that article, I was like, well, yeah, who could play who? And first off, I don't know why this popped into my head, but I thought Chris Pine would actually make a good Chris Redfield, not just because they have the same first name and everything, but I've seen his work. Can't really say I enjoy a lot of the movies he does, but I know he's a really good actor. So as playing Chris, I could see him doing that. Jill Valentine, it's a no-brainer. Julia Voth, because she is Jill. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
You could always bring Sienna Gilroy back, because I think she did a fucking dynamite job in those live-action movies. A lot of people didn't like those, but I think because she actually studied the character, I was like, all right, I give you props. You actually pulled this character off. Barry Burton, it's kind of hard to see like who would be him, because the original guy who did it actually did look like him.
Did he really?
So, but yeah, yeah. Go back and look at the live actor in the original.
Yeah, he
looks just like him. He's got the beard, he's got the hair and everything like that. But
I think, you know what, guys? I got to stop you right there. I think that was actually confirmed. That wasn't him doing the live action thing. He just did the voice.
Oh, right. Because none of them actually, not a lot of them spoke anyway during the opening cutscene. Yeah. But
real quick before you continue, you say you don't know who could play Barry, and I wouldn't want it, but you know who looks exactly like Barry Burton from Resident Evil Remake? That guy from Home Alone. You guys know
Marv?
Yeah, I think it's Marv. You know who I'm talking about? Let's see.
Are you talking about the bald guy or the one with the scraggly hair?
No. Joe Pesci was the small guy. The tall guy was Daniel Stern.
He looks just like him. Okay, well, anybody who's listening, I'm sorry about that, but just go Google Home Alone Marv and tell me that doesn't look just like Barry Burton from the Resident Evil Remake.
I mean, but the idea that I actually did have for Barry at one point, I was thinking John Hamm, the guy from Mad Men. If he grew out a beard or anything, because I think if they bulked him up a little bit, like how Barry's kind of big and stuff, I think they could do it. Or what's that one guy? He's in 28 Days Later.
Jeremy Renner?
No. 28 days, not 28. 28 weeks later. 28 Days Later was the one where the guy woke up in the hospital.
You're not talking about the guy in the hospital, though, are you?
No. That's Cillian Murphy. I think that's his name. But no, remember the father and the daughter that were traveling?
Oh, yeah. Good point. He'd be a good.
That guy with a beard could actually. Yeah, he's in. Yeah. I can't remember his freaking name, but he's in so much, and he plays really good characters. It's another movie that he was in recently. I saw a while back that he would be really good. He was in that Mel Gibson movie, Edge of Darkness. Yeah.
I'm finding his name real quick.
Yeah, if you put a beard on him because of his body type and everything like that and his age, he could do a good Barry. Trying to think, what were the other ones? For Wesker, I say DC
Gleason.
Douglas, because if you've seen, what's his name?
Sorry, Brendan Gleeson.
That's what it is. Okay, yeah. I remember. Okay, now I remember the name that you said it. That he would. If anybody looked that guy up, and you'll agree with me. But yeah, like I said, Wesker, I think DC Douglas would be perfect, because not only does he do the voice, but the dude worked out like a beast for that movie Apocalypse Kiss or whatever it was, and they dyed his hair blonde as a tribute to Wesker, and he looks just like him, and it's perfect. And like when he does the voice, he doesn't really have to contort his face too much. And then I realized that, if they didn't bring him on, which would be the smart idea, just have Keanu Reeves do it. If you actually get Keanu Reeves mad, if you've seen the movie, what was it, the Man from Tai Chi, and everything, you've seen that movie and stuff, he actually gets really angry in it, and I could see him doing Wesker. Plus, I mean, we already know he can wear the RE5 outfit anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much they stole that straight from the Matrix. So.
The one who popularized it.
But for the final character, because a lot of the other ones would be hard to place, I was trying to think of it, but I couldn't. This was the best one I could do. But I would think that Abigail Breslin would do really good as Rebecca Chambers. She's from Signs, Scream Queens, and of course, the big one when she was younger was Zombieland. And if you see what she looks like now, I think if they put like a brown wig on her or stuff like that, I think she'd actually make a pretty good Rebecca Chambers.
Yeah, definitely. It's got like a very sort of, I don't want to say childish, but younger looking face.
Yeah, and that's pretty much like what Rebecca is. She's very she's only 18 years old at the beginning of the series and everything like that. And Abigail Breslin, I think she's actually only like early 20s right now.
Yeah.
So I think for like that cast to be pretty good, and how it goes about itself, if it was like a 30-minute episode or maybe an hour-long one, you could have a lot of things, kind of like how S.D. Perry did a lot of things in the books and explained a lot of things, like how Jill knew those two little girls that were in the neighborhood that ended up getting killed.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, you could add things into the series to drown it out. So like, you know, you could be at episode 3 and then they finally go to the Spencer Mansion, or like, you know, episode 2 maybe even, you know, like devote one whole episode to gathering and everything about everyone, you know, and or even at the end of 2 have them start flying out towards it. That kind of thing, you know, explore the rivalries like between Forrest and Chris, and how Enrico's threatened by like Chris and, you know, Wesker kind of deal thing, you know, like how he feels that like, you know, he could get bumped off as captain. There's so much like that they talk about, especially in like in the actual Resident Evil lore, that they don't build or expand upon. So the ability to make a series is there. It's just how they set it all up and build on it.
Very true.
Well, I'm just gonna make my thoughts very short and sweet. If we're talking writers, the only person I would really be comfortable with working and adapting and, you know, expanding upon the stories for a series
Paul
is
Anderson,
SD Perry. I do not want to talk about SD Perry. So if you're listening, SD Perry, get a hold of us. Get a hold of Capcom. Let's do this.
Yeah, no, I agree. Steve Perry definitely added to the characters in a way that only benefited, and you know, made them feel much more like people. So I could
on, you know, talking about the characters though, it's hard to picture somebody else playing somebody you spent almost 20 years with. Like, when I think of like the RE1 characters, I think automatically of the live action characters that we were given in the game, and with the voices, like I can't picture anybody playing Resident Evil 1 Chris besides Scott.
I've got a long list on this one, so it's going to take me a minute to go through mine.
Okay, I'm going to go through it real quick. Or AJ, were you not done yet?
No, just to shorten it up, SD Perry, if she's the writer, I'm on board, but I think people are either going to hate it, love it. It just depends on who they get for characters.
Yeah. Okay, that was good. And Tony, you're sounding great. I would have to differ a little bit, but it's hard because you made it sound so like interesting. But I actually would kind of want to stay away from the main characters in the games, just for the fact that if they're on TV and it's close to what, you know, the games are, that's going to be the definitive characters, and that's kind of how we're going to look at them. So I kind of wanted them to just be like kind of in the background, like all this stuff in the stars room is going on, but like I wanted to focus around a detective and really focus on the mystery, and how, you know, like it'll start off with a scientist in the Spencer Mansion. Somehow he'll escape, and then, you know, like I said in my video, inevitably become a zombie, starting off the murders, and then it'll switch over to a detective who's then put in charge of that, and then, you know, slowly starts unraveling this mystery behind Umbrella, and starts to find, you know, that Chief Irons might be kind of crooked. And then as it's building up through the season, like he's got all this info and everything, then the outbreak in Raccoon City starts, and then it just all goes to shit. But I just thought of the stars, kind of like you would see little cameos of them in the background. You'd be like, oh, that's Chris, but never really would focus on them. It was just, you know, kind of its own story. And then it would just like feature, like he would be, you know, out on his travels, and he would like bump into Marvin, or he'd bump into Kendo, you know, just little things, but it's its own story, so that it's not offending anybody, but it's interesting to not only Resident Evil fans, but a wider audience. That's just what I had to say about it.
Well, while I respect your opinion, you can go drown in a forest fire. But,
it's my boss.
No, like
what
you're saying actually is good, because, you know, there are those other stories, like, you know, you could even go as so far back for like flashback episodes and have them building the Spencer Mansion right out there in the you know, in the Arclay Mountains and everything. You could have George Trevor like 4 or 5 episodes be like about him kind of deal.
For sure, them characters that we don't already, like, we know about them, but we've never seen, like all the side stuff. There's so much to build on there. I like that. Yeah. Okay, Ollie, take
All
over. It's your go.
I do really like that idea that you have about them having a side story to it, not so much following the main cast, but like you said, the detectives or police officers that are in the RPD that are not working the main case, because, you know, the stars aren't called into like their last resort type thing. So
Yeah.
They could have been on the case and pulled off the case, but they're also investigating similar incidences and stuff like that around town. Now, if we were to go with main cast, I tried to keep my actors towards smaller roles, I guess, more affordable, so you can get a better cast. My Jill is Adriana Palicki. She was in John Wick, the first one, the one that tried to kill him in the room, and she was in G.I. Joe.
Oh yeah, she's hot.
Retaliation. Yeah, she's got the look. She's obviously got the skills. If you watch her in either one of those movies, she kicks ass. So.
Oh God, yeah, she does.
She would be great. And then my big one for Barry. This guy always comes to mind. Max Martini. He was. If you've seen 13 Hours, he played Oz. He was also in Spectres, which is another Netflix. So he's already got contracts with Netflix. You'd have to look him up, but his name is Max Martini. And in most movies he's in, he's got a little scruff to him, so he's kind of got, but he's a redhead too, so he's already got the part down, and he's got the background. So he's very tactical in his movies, so he's already got the background for the military part. Chris is a hard one. I would like to see someone seasoned. If you would ask me 10 years ago, I would have said, I think his name's Johnny Mesner. He was in he's in a lot of small movies. He was in Tears of the Sun. I think he played Lake in that one.
Oh, that's right.
The guy with the mohawk.
Yeah, he did.
He looks the part, but the thing is, he's older now. So it's like, okay, if you want to keep with the age group, because I would even say someone like, is it Frank Grillo? He played Crossbones in the Avengers.
Oh yeah, he's really good.
He's in The Purge. He's also another candidate for Chris, but he's, again, they're more high profile. They're older actors. If we went younger, I would say maybe someone like Kellen Lutz, who was in The Expendables 3. He kind of led the new breed. He's got a little bit of the background. He's a bigger dude. He's younger, so he might fit the part, but I don't know like how well he could play that part. I'm just going off of like style-wise. From what I've seen in Expendables 3, he wasn't too bad with the action. My Wesker is Guy Pearce. He was
yes.
You know what I'm talking about. Memento. He was in Iron Man 3. He played
very clean-cut guy.
Yeah, and he's got light hair anyways, but he's dyed his hair in several movies blonde, and he slicks it back. So he's got the evil villain down too. So I think he'd be a pretty good Wesker. Okay, for Enrico. I'm picking Jimmy Smits. He's been on a lot of TV shows.
Yeah.
He fits. I mean, he's perfect. He throw a goatee on him or just a badass mustache, and he's got it.
Oh yeah, perfect. I mean, like I watched him for years in NYPD Blue as a kid.
Yeah,
so,
NYPD Blue. He was on Dexter. He was on Sons of Anarchy. He knows TV shows. He knows how to develop a character through episodes. So
he's been in a few Star Wars movies too.
Star Wars. Yeah, he was in Star Wars. Which was it? The new one or Rogue One? It was in Rogue One, wasn't it?
He was in Rogue One, and then he was also in the prequels. I think he was in 2 out of the 3 prequels of the original 3 from like the early 2000s.
Yeah. He's in a lot of movies. He's got a lot of background between movies and TV shows. A lot more in TV shows too. For Rebecca, I'm going with Chloe Grace Moretz because she's still younger. She's got the look. She can kick ass. Obviously, she's Hit Girl. I think she just kind of fits the part, but that's still open. I mean, that can go to anybody. But I think she kind of has the look, and she's young enough, like actually really young enough to where she could play the part well. Richard would be a guy that he's small in a lot of movies. The movie that I could say that he was a bigger part in was Never Back Down. He played the bad guy Ryan. His name is Ken Gigandit.
Oh yeah.
It's a small part, but he looks like him.
Yeah.
And then as far as like Brad, you got to cast Brad, and it has to be a complete jackass in almost every movie he's in. A coward is Will Poulter, and he was in Chronicles of Narnia, the 3rd one. He was the kid that got turned into the dragon. He's just a complete coward. He runs away from everything, annoying as hell.
The
he's
eyebrows.
Also the eyebrow kid. Yeah, there you go,
Yeah,
eyebrow kid.
Everybody will know that.
He's older now. I haven't watched The Maze Runner, but I know him from the trailer. So that's what brought him to my attention. I was like, you know what, that dude right there is a good coward. And he's a bit of a dick. And he's got the look that you hate. So there you go. He's got the brows, man.
You know, it's funny too, because you guys are saying, a lot of good people. But meanwhile, in Hollywood, what they would do is cast these big known actors. Like the most outlandish thing, like Ryan Gosling is fucking Chris Redfield, Angelina Jolie as Jill Valentine, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Barry Burton.
They would never be able to afford all that. In a Netflix series, that's why I thought Netflix would have been perfect, because you get a big budget, but you can kind of like you're more creative to do what you want, and you can be very mature. But it's not like a ridiculous budget like on a Game of Thrones level, because I feel like if you are making a Resident Evil series, I don't think you should have a big budget, because then you'll run into the problem AJ was just saying. Like,
exactly.
You need less is more in that
more practical,
sense.
less produced, less.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at how what do you call it? That big one that just came out last year, Stranger Things.
Yeah, Stranger Things.
the kids were all like new, and a lot of the other people in those shows, like the teenagers and stuff, and a lot of the other actors, they're not like really that well known. They're like the biggest one in there is what was it? The guy who plays Hopper. He was pretty known in a lot of things. He's
Who
been
also probably make a pretty good Barry.
Yeah. Oh, he would. Yeah, he would too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I could see that. And what was it Renola Wire? Of course, everybody knows her and everything like that. Miss Shoplifter and everything. But yeah, I had to throw that in there. I throw that in there every time I mention her. It's funny. But yeah, like that's the thing. Like they had like two, maybe. There was the guy from the government, the guy with the white hair. He's in a lot of shit too. I can't remember.
There was a few, but a lot of no names that did a really good job at what they did.
A lot of their series, like Daredevil. I mean, the whole Marvel series thing. Each one has been phenomenal. Stranger Things. If you've watched AO, that was a damn good series. Their movies are good. Spectral. AO was a slow burn, man. That took a long time.
I didn't like the ending.
Yeah. Obviously, that. No spoilers. We're not going to go into that.
Next.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the quality of their shows and their movies. Spectral is one that Max Martini was in, as well as some other guys. Like the guy that played Ron on 13 Hours is also in Spectral, as well as a couple other really known actors. And they're budgeted enough to produce a good movie, but they're not too big budget. And they're starting to pull. If you've seen, they've dropped 3 teasers this week. One of them has Brad Pitt, and one of them has Will Smith for new movies coming out. Their budgets are like $90 million now.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't need a $90 million series. We need 20 to 30 million, keep it practical, hire people that are young, like they've done with most of their series that are somewhat known but unknown or at least recognizable, and keep it simple,
Yeah, but it's been a little bit and everything, so I think we can move on to the next one, which was
that was
the live action one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The next one. But yeah, good ideas, guys. And holy shit, Ollie, you have that. Like, you probably got a whole script you're sitting on right now. Like, I'm going to Hollywood to sell this.
I've written it in my head several times. So.
Damn, that was good. Okay, the next one is Resident Evil, the actual the final chapter movie. It didn't do well here. It was I believe it was the lowest of them, of a few of them. Whatever, it was lower.
It bombed.
It bombed, but in China,
where's
it
my
was
Nicolas
huge.
Cage face?
In China, it was huge. It actually topped the box office last week with $94 million, which means these movies have not died yet. No, they are still thriving. So, let's start with AJ. AJ, what are you super excited to hear that the Resident Evil Final Chapter is doing awesome in China?
Oh, I am so excited to hear that crap is, it's funny because compared to what it did in America, the budget itself for the movie was $40 million. So far, it's made over $238.7 million, which I can't believe that. It's out there. Like, everybody knows I hate these films with a passion. I do not understand. I mean, they're mainly focused at the action fans, so I get that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like right now I'm looking at the actual box office charts for it. Compared to China, what was it, 98 million over there?
94 million.
94 million. It only made 30 million on its opening day in America.
That's actually a lot, but yeah, that's really good. I read it was lower, but yeah, I know it didn't do very well here, but that's like, it's got that Transformer effect where it's critically
Let
panned.
me correct that. Correct that. It says right here it made 1 million from Thursday night previews and 5.1 million on its first day. It ended up opening to 13.9 million.
That sounds
the lowest
right. Okay.
debut of the franchise to finish 4th at the box office. So that's awful.
Good clear up. Okay, yeah, Tony, what do you think about this incredible news?
Okay, I give the movies a lot of shit, but I had gone to the theater with my friends and watched it, and it honestly, like, from what I wrote down on my pad during there in the theater and what I went over with my friends after we went out to eat, it wasn't that bad, and I can't believe I'm saying this with a straight face right now. No, I didn't see the new one because I was not gonna pay money for it. I've seen all the other ones in theaters, and every one of them, like the first one when it first came out as a kid back in 2002, I was just kind of like, like this isn't the movie that I wanted. And then the second one came out, and I was like, oh, okay, it's like Resident Evil 3 and everything. They're combining 2 and 3 into a movie. That's fine. The third one, in my opinion, is the worst one they ever did.
Yep, that's where it lost me.
Yeah, and then the fourth one wasn't as bad because I started to incorporate some things from the game, but, then it was just like, no. And then you did the one where they brought Ada in. They only, redeeming quality of that movie was the actress couldn't speak English, so they got Sally Cahill to come and voice Ada one last time before they replaced her with Courtney Taylor.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of like not shocked that's making money overseas, because a lot of movies that come out everywhere, like there's always some kind of market where they do really good. Like action stars like Van Damme and Steven Seagal, like obviously their movies never make it into theaters anymore because they cannot draw the crowd they used to. But when they're still released in cinemas overseas, and they have actually big premieres for a lot of these guys still, and they make money. Like the studios are making money. I'm not sure how much the actors are still making, but they're not that great. And like this movie, I haven't seen it. I can just tell it's gonna be garbage. Like even my friends who do like the movies, they had said that this was like the weakest one they've made, and I was like, wow, even worse than 3? Wow, that's pretty bad.
This last one?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said you watched it with a pad of paper.
No, like that was a joke. I said it.
I took that seriously. I kind of was like, okay.
I was like, oh,
He's taking notes.
But no, like I went back and I looked. Okay, so why are these movies horrible? Well, Paul Anderson, that guy is like he does writing, directing, and producing. Everything he does like never takes off when it's like TV, and when he does movies, the only movie he ever did half decently was Mortal Kombat. I mean, he was the director of Mortal Kombat, the first one.
Yeah.
But he wrote and directed Alien vs. Predator. We all know how that turned out. There wasn't a lot of like Alien vs. Predatoring going on. If you ever saw that movie Event Horizon with Sam Neill and everything, and who was the other guy that was in that? Lawrence Fishburne. It's kind of a cult classic, but it's a pretty bad movie. Then you get movies like Soldier with Kurt Russell. That friggin' tanked. The Dead or Alive movies, he was a producer for that and everything. The Death Race movies have not been that done. Like they keep giving this guy the chance to make movies, and he's failing.
Who? Paul?
I would like to say it's Hollywood intervening with his idea, but he keeps getting work somehow.
You're talking Paul Anderson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's making a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, even though his wife's worth a lot more than he ever will be.
Yeah, but that's why he's getting this work, is because like even though a lot of fans and people in general don't like the movies at all, they're making a lot of money, so they're gonna keep hiring him. He's obviously doing something right.
Guys, there is one big highlight to all this besides it ending. At least we didn't get that Uwe Ball guy working on them.
Uwe Ball.
Yeah, that dude.
That guy, he's the other guy he's made about like 7 or 8, I believe, movies based off of video games, like the Alone in the Dark movies, House of the Dead.
Blood Rain.
Yeah, Blood Rain. Oh, he butchered that fucking franchise with those movies. But yeah, that guy will literally, like, when he doesn't like something, he'll challenge people to fights. And I was like, I want to fight this guy.
Oh, I heard of that in the news. Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Okay, Ali, what do you think about this 94 million?
Well, my wife is from Asia. She's from Thailand, born and raised there. She didn't come to the States until 2007. Then we got married shortly after that. And she said the same thing, that this is like Resident Evil. They have the movies. They don't really know much about the games. I'm sure there's, it's marketed out there. They can play it, but she knows the movies. That's all she knows of Resident Evil. So she doesn't understand why I get so upset when these movies come out and why I hate them so much. And if you look at it, they make back their budget maybe a little bit more in the States, and then overseas they go nuts and they make tons of money, which is why they allow this Paul W. Anderson to come back and ruin another one.
Yeah,
and he's ruined so many things I loved. I mean, Mortal Kombat. I as a kid, man, I loved it so much, and thankfully he only directed it, and he didn't know what jump cuts were yet. Because holy crap, we'll get to that in a second. But everything else he's ever done was garbage, and he ruined Mila. That's Lilu Dallas, man. You don't mess with my childhood,
Yeah.
And you killed her. you put her in these garbage movies, and you played fanfic with your wife, and you forced us all to watch it. It's just garbage. So, anyways, yeah, I'm not a fan. I still love Mila, and I hope she comes out in something better soon. But just he's killing everything that she does. Now, as far as the movies go, the first one I liked. I actually enjoyed it. It was separate. That's why I liked it, because it didn't interfere with what we already knew. It was a bunch of different characters, different environment. If you watch it now, yeah, it's cheesy as hell, and the graphics are god awful because he doesn't do graphics well. He tries to put all these impressive things that just don't look right. He doesn't put enough money, or I think he tries to go too hard with these the CGI. I didn't like 2. I hated 2 with a passion because Nemesis looked retarded. The zombies looked retarded. Like, there was shots where he would show a dark alley of shadows of zombies, and it was blurry, and it was like shuffling and moaning. I'm like, that's just horrible directing. Like, the only positive thing was what was her name? I forget, the one that played Jill that you were talking about. She was awesome.
Sienna.
Yeah.
Great casting, and I loved her. And I, like you said, she knew the part, and the part was played well. The rest of it was stupid, and they started bringing in the whole Super Alice into it, and that was stupid.
And even when she lost her powers, yet she could still run on top of zombies and kick them with like a bicycle chain thing.
Well, that's when they brought the wire work into it and all this other bullshit. Like, I don't know, he didn't have a direct plan for what he was doing with these movies. He just said, here's garbage on a paper. Let's put money into making this look kind of cool in my head.
But I'm going to make you a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, exactly. Because somebody out there is going to pay to see this garbage.
Yeah.
Somebody in Asia.
I got to say, though, there were 2 really good standout moments for me. One from the first movie with Rain, where she's like, your boyfriend's an asshole. But she's like half infected. And then obviously, I forget which one it is. Tony will probably clear it up for me. Where Sienna beats the shit out of Alice.
Oh, that's the 4th one.
I thought that was fucking epic.
They all blur together for me.
So
Sienna was the best thing about the films.
As far as the rest of them go, 3 is stupid. Oh God, let me get into 4. So you put Claire into the series, and Ali Larter, I'll give her credit too. She was a pretty decent Claire. It's just her Claire wasn't written right, but she could play the part, and she looked the part. I'm down with Ali Larter as playing Claire. I just don't like the way they wrote the part for her. 4, you get Claire back. Yeah, she has amnesia. Somehow you wind up in this prison that happens to have Chris in the basement.
Yeah.
And you break Chris out of his prison cell, and he's standing there talking to you for a good 15 to 20 minutes before he realizes his sister's been standing there the whole freaking time. That's the first thing you would have seen. And why are you in that prison? And you crash landed a plane on top of this prison. And, oh my God, why? Who comes up with this BS? And then you wind up on the carrier, and again, the guy that played Wesker did, for what he could, was decent. He had the look, he had the attitude down, but it just wasn't written good. It wasn't directed well.
Very true.
So, and you had him for what, 5 minutes at the end of that before she kills him. And yeah, he comes back later, but he's just he's wasted the whole series. So I mean, that's that. And the one where was it the 4th or 5th one? The 5th one where she goes to the different levels. They stole that straight from the 2nd book. Was it Calvin Cove, or was it the 4th book?
That was Underworld.
4th book. Underworld, yeah, where they had different levels of different fights and different environments to fight in.
The planet.
S.T. Perry, go for that copyright infringement.
Yes, you need to attack him for that. I've highlighted this. Please go after him for that. So
they probably changed it just enough so like they don't have to like she can't do anything.
Well, they just took ideas and said, hey, all this stuff that we've done in the past, what if we put Alice in that situation? What if that cool zombie outbreak that was in the last one that everybody really liked was actually Alice had to kill everybody in that situation now? Or she was in New York and had to fight 2 giant freaking, executioners. It's like, it just got, and then Ada was god-awful.
It's no different than like what the Hunger Games did. They ripped off Battle Royale like no tomorrow. Everyone's like, no, they didn't. Oh God, yeah. I get crucified when I say that, and I love it.
So let's talk about the casting for that movie. Let's talk about Leon. Awful, stupid. I don't think I've ever seen that guy in anything else. He's probably in a few movies, but I could care less to watch him now because that was the stupidest choice. Did he have any connection?
I can't even say what I think about Leon because I'll get in so much trouble.
Yeah. Did he have any connection to Ada in that movie? Because I've only seen that movie once. I don't care, but I'd like to go watch it again. I love the guy that plays Barry and everything else except this one because he didn't have any reason to play Barry. They brought back the basketball
he's
player.
Really good.
Yeah, he's a good actor. I like him. He's in a lot of good series and he's been in a lot of good movies as a side character. He wasn't a good Barry. And then,
well, he's a main character in that show, The Strain, that's done by Guillermo del Toro.
Exactly. Which actually, talking about Netflix shows, Guillermo del Toro should probably direct Resident Evil series, but that's just my opinion. So anyways, and then the part where the little girl gets abducted by the monster, who they built up this monster to be some force, and it was over in like 2 minutes. Okay, now on to the next one. That movie, the last one I'll say, I only watched it, and I refused to go watch it on its own and to support the movie. I only watched it because it was a double feature at a drive-in with John Wick 2. And so I basically paid to see John Wick, and we stuck around to watch this thing.
Oh man, like it would have been better if you could just suffered for almost 2 hours for the first movie, then get rewarded for John Wick. It was funny. Going into that second one is just like, oh, John Wick was amazing. Oh, we're watching this. Yep. Oh, all the fun's gone. Oh, this night's ruined. Oh, I can't go on.
My
Honey,
wife
you gotta
went to
drive me home.
sleep. The parking lot of all the cars, you could see them all just start driving away. And then I laughed at so many points that I woke my wife up. She says, "What's so funny?" I was like, "This movie. You gotta watch this movie. It's so stupid." It actually, I will say that as a movie as a whole, it was okay. I'm not gonna say it was good. I'm saying it was okay. I could tolerate it, but it actually legitimately made me sick because he didn't go more than 2 to 5 seconds without a jump cut to another angle and this that. I'm like, dude, just focus for 5 minutes. Like, take your Adderall. Calm the fuck down and film a scene.
You got a monkey working these cameras. What the hell?
Yeah.
God, it made me sick. And then I literally applauded in the car when the movie was over. And she said, "I thought you hated it." And I said, "I did, but it's over."
I'm just so glad it's over.
I think that was pretty much every fan around the world at that point.
At least we hope. But then it goes and makes $300 million around the world.
If they do bring it back, can we at least get the director of the first Silent Hill movie?
I like that. It was a good
movie.
movie.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it was actually pretty well done.
I think that was actually the best video game adaptation. And then the second one came around.
Well, that's because they waited like 6-7 years to do that one.
Well, they didn't even have the original director. From what I heard, apparently he went to jail.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
Everybody in Hollywood's going to jail. He'll be back.
Yeah.
Look at Wesley Snipes.
And then everybody will want him when he gets out of jail. He'll be the hot new director. As far as Resident Evil making $94 million in China, it really has that Transformers effect where it's like panned around here, but it's doing really well over there. So regardless, like, they're gonna keep making it. If it's doing really well and making tons of money, that's, this is a business. Why would they not want to make more money? As much as we don't like it, if you really don't want to see this continue, it's not really a good thing that it's making a lot of money. As far as my take on it, I've completely separated the games from the movies a long time ago. So when, that this movie exists doesn't bother me anymore because I know that it's its own thing. It doesn't make me mad or anything. I would much rather just have a Resident Evil Netflix show because I feel like that's where we'd have the strongest material. So it doesn't bother me they're making these, but if it's making a lot of money, they're going to keep doing it. And, I'm not really spoiling it, but they left it open at the end of the movie for more.
Oh, yeah.
So it can totally
happen.
happen.
It's not over. It's not over.
I have one more thought before we end this, because it just came to my mind. Maybe Ollie can back me up on this, get some info from his wife or whatever. It really surprises me that it made 94 over China because China actually has a reputation for, censoring horror movies and movies that come over from America.
True.
So I'm very shocked.
But Resident Evil, that's where it's from.
No, Resident Evil's from Japan.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. Fuck.
That's where it's from.
Son of a bitch.
No, it's not.
But I mean,
we need a segue.
By every fan.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not from China, but I don't know, the Chinese market for movies is, over the past few years, is really growing. Like, it's becoming a very big deal now, and a lot of movies are making a huge amount of their money from there.
That's another thing, though, with China, because people are going to hate me for saying this, but China, over there, piracy is a huge thing when it comes to movies. So I'm very shocked that people actually went out and got it when they could have just went online.
It could just be a population type thing. They have a lot of people in China. That's a lot of people that pay the price to see a movie, whether, it's, it could be the same, it wouldn't be, like, if they're, take our demographic of percentages, if you take 50% of the people that go watch it, 50% means a lot different to them. That's a lot more people. So, and then their style of movies is different too. While we do prefer that we know the series is horror and we want to see something horror related or at least something atmospheric, China is still a very action oriented country where their movies are still action based. Even their TV shows, my wife watches different shows from different countries, and she'll watch these Chinese shows that show them going back in history, like back in the feudal days. She was watching one like it was about a doctor, but every other scene was like drama to action, and they're doing stuff that you would see like in a Jet Li movie on a TV show. So I can understand why the action sells so good up there.
Yeah. All right, now we're going to get into the Q&A. You guys sent us questions. We're going to try to get to a few of them. We're not going to be able to get to all of them, but definitely if we're not going to get to yours tonight, ask again next week and we'll try to get to it. And you guys can send your questions in by using the hashtag ROEpodcast, that's ROE Podcast, or you can send us an email at roepodcast@gmail.com, roepodcast@gmail.com. AJ, you take this one.
All right, I got this. This is all comments from the 1.5 page. My buddy Matt actually wrote on here, Game.com version of Resident Evil 2, the definitive version we all know and love.
Where do we even begin?
Tony, let's start with you.
Yeah, that was like one of those like, failing ideas where, it's just like, hey, this game is selling well on the PlayStation and people really like it. Let's see what else we can do it with. Let's try to put it on everything possible. And, they did the Gamecom, which only had like, I think 7 games before it was like discontinued. And I have the game. I don't have the actual the Tiger handheld thing to actually put it in there, but I have the game. But I've seen my buddy who has it. I've seen him play it. I was watching him, and I'm like, the sound on this is horrible. Like, it's just so bad. Like, even those like the other ones, like the old Tiger electronic handhelds, where like you had like Ninja Gaiden and Sonic the Hedgehog, all those different ones that like they only had like one soundtrack the whole time. They were more entertaining than how that one turned out. That was just one of those business ventures where they were like, let's just do it because we can do it, and it probably ain't gonna cost us a goddamn thing.
Yeah,
it's just
they're getting out
there.
there.
My buddy played. I just don't even think it was that playable either.
I'm only going to add my comment that we should have got Resident Evil 1 for Game Boy Color instead. Next.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of the Tiger Electronics handheld when you brought this up. The Gamecom version was shit, but I remember that handheld Resident Evil 2 when I was a kid. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Obviously, it's junk now, but yeah, that's my take on it. Ollie, what's yours?
Yeah, I was thinking of the same one you're talking about, the Tiger one. I didn't even know about the Gamecom one, so I'm going to talk about the Tiger one.
Okay.
The Tiger one to me is like Jumanji. I can hear the tribal beat in the other room as it's calling to me from my bookshelf. It's one of those things, So I have to say about this one, and you guys may know about this. If you don't, go take a look. It's got a really cool, like it looks like an old school cell phone with like a flip up top, and the texture on this thing is something I'll never forget because it has this weird, rough, like I don't know if it's like I don't know, JJ, can you think of what it like compares to as
like
far as what the texture is?
Like a sandpaper that doesn't scratch you.
Or like a carbon fiber or something. It was a really weird feeling to hold this thing.
Yeah.
That's what she said. Sorry, I had to throw that one in there. Anyways, so yeah, it's not very good. But it's something about it. Like I started playing it when I got it when I was a kid, and I didn't get very far because it wasn't very entertaining. And it was actually kind of challenging, but I remember coming back to it several years later, finding it in a box somewhere in my closet when I was like a teenager, and I put batteries in it, and it still worked, and I actually played all the way through it. And there was this at the ending, there was like this pride I had. I was like, I actually beat that damn thing. I can say that there's probably not a whole lot of people in the world who have played it and finished it, and I'm one of them.
Wow.
And yeah, it's. And you know what? I'm going to say right now that how old that's probably at least going on 20 years old, it still works today too.
Holy shit, I wish I still had mine.
I actually have to add something to that. I remember the one you're describing. It was called like the 99X Tiger.
Yeah,
like that.
That's it. And it was black. It had like 4 blue buttons, if I remember correctly, and it has the 3 red ones. And pretty much for anybody at home, if you haven't already looked it up from what I just called it, I pretty much remember it being like those old Digimon keychains.
Yes, exactly.
That's kind of like the best way to describe looking at it before you go look it up.
Like it's not even like 8-bit; it's like 4-bit. and it's like 4 black squares as your character walking across shooting something else that was 4 black squares.
It was so cool at the time.
It really was. You had to pick
For
up
kids.
ammo and like
Yeah.
manage your supplies. Yeah, and you know what? It was probably this is their adventures into other formats, pushing Resident Evil into the mainstream. We were literally 2 steps away from a Saturday morning cartoon called Chris and Friends.
Chris and Brian. There
You
was
know, I do want to throw out there before we go into the next question
Sure.
that when they were making on this game with the Game Boy Color version of Resident Evil 1, they were actually working on a version of Dino Crisis for Game Boy Color as well.
Oh wow, that
shit!
would have been
Why
cool.
didn't they do that? That would have been so.
You
fucking
could
cool.
find
Missed
2
opportunities.
screens online.
God damn. I'm gonna have to check that out for sure. There's a little link cable at the top of that Tiger too. That
Yeah, was it multiplayer in some form or
think
way? I know.
so.
Nobody else ever had it, so I could never try it.
I think it was multiplayer. It was ahead of its time. But,
Right.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Next question, AJ.
All right, this one comes from Patrick. He wants us to discuss whether Wesker is really dead or if he was a clone in 5.
Oh God, that's why I hate clones, you guys. This is why I fucking hate clones.
Yes, they should never start the whole clone thing.
Hope he's dead.
Nope. I hope he's dead too. Simple.
Simple. Ollie, Tony.
Please let him die, just because you ruined it. Just let him go.
You take out us caring when you just prolong it. You know what I mean?
And you gave him the what is it? What the hell is the plague called?
Yeah, it's something.
Borobos? Is that what they're called?
Ouroboros.
Ouroboros. God, I couldn't even think of it.
You just sound
You
like a
gave
little
him-
girl from Revelations 2.
Yeah. See, you gave him that, and it just we got to Chris punching boulders to kill him. Let's not do any more of that. Just let him die.
Yeah.
Just end it.
Boulder
Dude,
punch.
I mean, if you wanted him to go out, wasn't that the best way with 2 rockets from Chris and Jill?
Yes, actually, I will
take
say
two
rockets
it
to
should have
kill.
been.
It was
It should have
Sheva.
been Jill. It should have
Oh,
been
wait.
Jill.
Well, it wasn't Jill. Oh no, shit.
It was
it?
yeah,
It
Sheva.
was. Oh, what I'm thinking is people were pissed that it wasn't Jill. It should have been them
Right.
two
It
finishing
should
him
have been
off.
Jill.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It
sorry,
should
my
have been
bad.
4 rockets from all 4 from Barry, Rebecca, Chris, and Jill.
Yeah, I had it in my head. I replaced that
And all
memory
of a
with how
sudden,
it should
like-
have been.
Yeah, like you're in the plane, all of a sudden Josh joins them too, and they're like he fires and like, good job, everyone, good job. Who's flying the fucking plane?
I love it. I love it. That's a new canon. What do you think, Tony? Do you want to see him again?
Okay, look, he's like one of my favorite characters. I would like to, but I don't know how you'd fit him back in. See, like here's my weird question. I never understood this. Like, he's at the top of the plane when he crashes into the volcano. He doesn't have a shirt, so I'm thinking maybe he released the clone or something.
gosh.
I don't know. Like,
Broke off, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know, but I would like to see him come back in some way. Maybe do it in flashbacks somehow like do flashbacks with them, bring him back. DC Douglas wants work. He loves the character. He really does love the character a lot.
For sure.
So I would like to see it like maybe like in a flashback kind of thing, or in games previous to his to his death.
Some involvement in the Resident Evil 2 remake?
What was he doing outside of the Resident Evil series when he was behind the scenes, working with Ada and trying to
You know
do
what
the-
he was doing? He was making Jake, apparently.
That's
Oh,
true.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
Making babies.
Nice. Yep.
He's like, oh shit! What that one time in Endo? Wait, oh god, no, I was drunk. Oh god, I fell off the wagon.
So
No,
there-
but yeah, like the thing of it is, like, I think because if you play Dark Side Chronicles, sorry, is it Dark Side Chronicles? Yeah, it's Dark Side Chronicles when you play as Ada and you're trying to escape the city at one point, or maybe that was Umbrella Chronicles. Either way,
His umbrella.
yeah, okay, thank you, dude. I couldn't remember. Ada goes to that hotel that's in Resident Evil Outbreak that you go to. Yeah, Hellfire. And she gets the famous grappling hook from a guy who killed himself. She shows the tissue sample from Burke, and somehow she fucking got that. And Wesker was on the screen. I think there's ways to fit him in to somehow. I think they could do it, even if it's just doing what he did in 4 and just appeared in videos.
Like a small cameo.
Yeah, if he had just like done that, I think something like that would have worked out really well.
Well, here's what. Okay, let's say if they follow the actual storyline for remake, right, from 2, and it's either Ada falls over the rail and falls down to the darkness, or she gets, slashed and dies on the platform down in the reactor area. after Leon leaves and the body's there or something, you need to see the black boots walk up and then, maybe squat down and pick her up and then just fades up to the glasses or something. Just some kind of little cameo.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
So there's ways to bring them back.
Right.
But yeah, that was definitely very good points on that. So maybe we'll see him back. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe just like flashbacks and stuff.
So there you go, Patrick. Tony's on your side.
Yeah.
Woo!
I do love Wesker, and I would like to see him again, but I think
yeah.
with what you did at the end of the 5, you need to let him go.
Yeah.
I don't want him back. He needs to stay dead. Resident Evil 2 and 3 were fine without him.
That's true.
Poor mouth.
All right, next
Such
question.
a dirty whore mouth. Alright, next, this is actually going to be the last one from 1.5, but this guy is saying Resident Evil Dead Aim was kind of shit for me. I'm glad to hear your opinion, and I am not going to pronounce his name because I'm going to butcher it.
You should try.
Momchi.
Okay. All right. Resident Evil Dead Aim, I remember playing it when it first came out and thinking it was complete ass. And the only thing I remembered from it was the ending where he shoots his gun at the boss and he says, "My daddy's trunk ain't big enough for the both of us." It was so cheesy, but it's like that's kind of how old Resident Evils were. And like I don't know, I've seen this like shift for Resident Evil Dead Aim, and it seems like the longer away from it we go, the more people start to say they really liked it. And it really was like going from fixed camera angles to what you seen in 4. So it had like that third person, and then when you would aim, it would go to first person. It was a very short game, but I'm seeing a lot of people that are coming back and saying they really liked it actually. So I kind of want to go back and play it.
That's the funny thing. I'm in the minority because I got it at launch because there was nothing else coming out around that time. And it was actually for my birthday.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, I'm right there with you too.
So it was me and, 2 friends. We played it all night. We actually really loved it. We loved the fact that, when you weren't in combat, it was actually third person like it usually was. The game wasn't the greatest when it came to voice acting, but neither was, the original.
Exactly.
The storyline was shit, but, Resident Evil's not known for its storyline. It was fun to speedrun.
That's what it was.
Just a fun. But if I had to compare it, I would say I prefer Dead Aim over Survivor and Code Veronica. This is Survivor Code Veronica.
Sounds good.
Yep. Okay, so I'm kind of in the same boat as AJ there. Boat. Anyways.
Pun intended.
Right, pun intended. I got it when it came out because just the love of Resident Evil was like, oh, it's Resident Evil, I got to get this. And then I played it, and I actually enjoyed it because maybe I was too young to really judge it. I wasn't really much of a critic at that point. Everything was still good, so it wasn't great. It was a cool concept, like interesting mechanics with the whole third person to first person, even though the first person part was really, really, really challenging to adjust to as far as controls wise. But it was a cool concept. And then the voice acting had moments where it was good. The story was kind of thin, but it fit. I didn't need much other than the fact that maybe this guy is somehow tied with an organization that knows about Umbrella. He's going to the ship to investigate. We got another cool Asian chick that shows up and kicks his ass. So it was an interesting path that they were taking with some cool concepts that we end up seeing come up later in the series. Things that they were trying out. But the takeaway from it all for me is that guy will always look like Paul Walker to me. With the horrible Southern accent.
Yo.
His name Bruce. Yeah, Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce with his black Under Armour shirt.
His Southern
his
accent.
horrible Southern accent. I'm like, dude, just don't do it. Why was that necessary? Did you have when you did your casting? Were like, you must do a Southern accent. He's like, I'm like,
I swear to God, they were channeling the original one actors with that game.
Yeah, they were like, how bad can we make the voice acting? Do a Southern accent.
Which is so bad it's good.
Yeah.
Right. And then who was your bad guy? Morpheus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just like, hey, what popular right now? Oh, Matrix movies. Oh, hey, the bad guy's name is Morpheus, and he's got long white hair like Sephiroth.
Good correlation. Yeah. What did you think, Tony?
I mean, it was a spin-off game, so like when I first heard about it, I just instantly went back to Resident Evil Gun Survivor, the first one on the PlayStation, and was like, it's probably not going to be that great, so if I get it, I'm not going to end up being horribly disappointed by it and realize I just got to go in realizing it's probably been half-assed. And I did enjoy the game for the most part. It is fun. Kind of does get annoying sometimes, but I did like some of the music that was in the game. I actually really did enjoy that. I liked the exploration of the ships. I thought they actually did a pretty good job. You know, the whole switching from the first person to the third person view, or vice versa, actually, wasn't that bad. I think it was handled pretty decently, even though it's still really clunky. I think they were just trying to do something different to get some more cash, because you gotta remember, during the PS2 era, there was technically no main series Resident Evil other than 4, but 4 was originally made for the GameCube only. That was the thing. They just ported it over because everybody was buying a PS2 back in the day. So you had games like, Gun Survivor, and then there was you got Dead Aim, the Outbreak series, and then they ported Code Veronica over to the PS2. So it's like they just had to do something to keep people interested in Resident Evil for the time while they worked on, getting ready for 5. So, like, all in all, it's a fun game just to go back and play once in a while. It's not the greatest, but it's not exactly bad. But it definitely exists.
Yeah, it exists.
I do think the item screen is actually the best one in the series.
I don't even remember it.
Ditto.
It is really, really cool looking. You gotta go back and look at it.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to do that. So that's it for your questions, you said?
Yep.
Okay, I got one more here from Twitter, Ro2236 on Twitter, if you want to follow the Residents of Evil. Jose Palma says, do you think Resident Evil 8 should continue Ethan's story or go back to the main characters? And then the second part of that question is, that's cheating. You can't do second parts. No, I'm just kidding. The second part is most overrated Resident Evil game. So that is 2 questions.
Oh, this is going to be fun. I want this first.
Ooh, take it first.
He's hungry.
Take it.
Okay, I didn't play Resident Evil 7, so I can't really comment on the storyline itself, but would I rather see new characters, the characters we have now introduced, or going back to the old ones? I would like to see more new characters brought in, because like I was saying in the beginning of the podcast, eventually these older characters are going to die off.
Yeah.
And it's not only that, it's not scary with these older characters anymore, because they got their story done. They're hardened survivors. You can't really be scared of, shit you already went through.
Right, we've seen them go up against insurmountable odds and ridiculous enemies and bosses that you can't really capture the fear against somebody who's brand new to something like this.
Exactly. And now when it comes to overrated, Resident Evil 4. Of course, a lot of games copied off of it with the third person, over-the-shoulder camera angle thingy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't like the fact that it brought all these QuickTime events into the series. I don't like that is where the action started. People will debate that up and down nonstop, but Resident Evil 4 did introduce the action, and I did not like it. I remember getting it for the PS2. I played it for 20 minutes and had to shut it off because it was not Resident Evil to me. It did not feel like it. It did not play like it. Leon seemed like a completely generic, boring character, completely different from Resident Evil 2. He lacked any personality. It just felt like they were starting to branch out to, bring more casual people in. I know they had to evolve the series, but there's a difference between completely evolving your series and completely changing it into something it's not supposed to be.
Good points. Tony, what do you think? Let me pull the question back up here to refresh you. Do you think Resident Evil 8 should continue Ethan's story or go back to the main characters? And the second part of that is, what is the most overrated Resident Evil game in your opinion?
Well, I mean, as far as Ethan's story, I mean, he was just trying to find Mia. So, at the end of the game, mission accomplished kind of deal,
Yeah.
He was just this average-looking Joe, and that was it. He was just trying to find his wife, who somehow she's involved with dealing in biohazard weapons and living weapons, apparently, from what we were shown. And I don't think he knew what his wife really did for work. Something tells me he did not know.
Yeah, she definitely lied to him.
So was she a prostitute?
Oh,
no. But she even
like Ali
said,
said,
I lied to you. So it's like, yeah, somebody wasn't honest in this situation.
Do you think Ethan might not be honest either, though? I don't know. I think he's a scientist.
Well, it's like Ali said and everything like that. You know, it's like she was apologizing for something and saying, you know, she lied about something.
Yeah.
So that just led me to believe that he literally didn't know what she was involved in. Yeah, she could have just been like a scientist and everything, but she didn't say like what it is she does, or she lied about what it is she does.
Yeah.
Overall, I think that, you know, that story for those two are completed, because the real question now is these biological weapons that apparently can grow, and they've made them into humans, it seems, or have done experiments on them where they get some kind of ability to control the people's minds and make them do crazy shit, you know. And now there's the whole the Umbrella Copters at the end, and Chris apparently working for them or whatever. All those things are kind of like the new story now. Ethan and Mia's story kind of ended. So I'm not opposed to new characters, because when they've brought new characters into the series, it has worked pretty well. I know a lot of people don't really like Jake that much from Resident Evil 6, but I think Helena was a really good character, and I loved Pierce's character because I thought like he was the guy who just kept kicking Chris's ass the whole time to get it in gear and get back to shape. So like you guys stated, you know, with a lot of the Resident Evil characters and everything like that, they're just, some of them are they're in their 40s at this point now. So it's just like, yeah, it's time to like let some go, or at least like let them do one final run before they retire, or take some kind of different job like training newbies and stuff. So again, I'm not opposed to new characters. I think it's great. But finish off the old guys first. Like let their story end, you know, because it's like almost 20 years in the story's timeline at this point.
Yeah, I still think that Chris and Jill's story should have been completed with 5. It would have been the perfect way to send them off. Definitely.
And as for what was the other one? Most overhyped Resident Evil game?
Overrated.
Most overrated. Well, you know, AJ has said 4, and I kind of agree on multiple parts of that. I do like a lot of 4, but I think it got a lot more attention than it needed. But I would have to say, I don't know, I feel that a lot of people give 6 like way too much credit for whatever fucking reason. You know, and it's weird because I come across those people that think that like 6 is the best one in the franchise.
What?
Yeah,
because they like giraffes.
Giraffe. No, like
Dinosaurs.
it's weird, you know, because I've met a lot of people who either started with 6 or started with 5, and they thought 6 was like the best one, and I can't figure out if it's people that are like, they like the characters and they don't really understand the story. But when you also look at the characters in 6, a lot, I mean, like Jake, you find out he's the son of Wesker somehow. Then, you know, you've got Simmons, who is like one of the main bad guys, who's a part of this family that just came out of nowhere, and they never explain who this family is. You know, all these different things that were happening. I mean, Ada gets cloned and everything. The clone is jealous of all that shit and everything. And people are like, oh, it's a good game. It's got fun co-op. I was like, no, co-op for that game is not fun at all, because you've got junk controlling. You've got buttons that won't, like, even when you react on time to the QuickTime events, there's a major delay with a lot of them. There's serious frame rate issue drops, and 6 does not look as good as 5 did. 5 looked way better, like cinematic wise, everything. It was nice and polished and everything. 6 seemed to just come out bad. And
it's actually even worse on the PC.
But that for some reason just doesn't surprise me. But yeah, no, 6 to me, like, people, like, I keep finding these people that praise it, and it doesn't really shock me that people do, because I've run into people that never played the original. Well, they never played Resident Evil Rebirth on the GameCube. You know, they started playing the remastered everything, or some didn't even knew it existed, because again, that was a game that didn't sell that well back on the GameCube, and back then, you know, people didn't buy GameCubes because Resident Evil players were primarily on PlayStation, you know? And most PlayStation people I knew weren't really Nintendo fans. So it made all the more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you think 6 then was more overrated?
Like I said, I can respect what 4 did for the franchise, because it still did have the atmosphere, you know. Leon, it like was, you know, yeah, like you had the ammo everywhere and stuff, you know, but Leon was alone. for most of the time. Yeah, he had Ashley and Luis was there and Ada, but for the most part, he was alone the whole time.
True.
And I think, you know, how they went about doing it was a good way, because either way, we were kind of going to get that. Even when you saw all those betas we talked about earlier in the podcast, they were all pretty much like, you know, over the shoulder type deals. I mean, yeah, there is action parts to it and everything, you know, like it gets really action like towards the end once you first find Krauser and do all that stuff, and then you get to the military compound at the end. It's pretty much a full action game at that point. But like I said, I still respect what 4 did for the franchise, but 6 to me, that's where it is. I was just like, people gotta stop praising that game and thinking it's like the tits and shit, like, you know.
No, I hear you.
Yeah, I just want to add quick one more thing about Resident Evil 4 I didn't like is the controls. People bitched and moaned that the controls for 1 through Code Veronica were tank-like. I can't even pick up Resident Evil 4 anymore because it actually controls worse than the original games.
Yeah, I went back and played it recently, and it was definitely a shock. It was so weird. Like, the controls just felt odd altogether. It took me probably a good, maybe 2 or 3 hours playing it before I remembered what the controls, like, they actually became more natural to me. That's only because of repetition.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I don't get, because critics actually gave the game credit for moving away from fixed angles. What they don't understand is the game still used tank controls. It was just over the shoulder. Yep,
exactly. So if we want to, if we're talking about where I'd like to see the series go as far as characters are and what I expect from 8, I really liked 7's branch into, Ethan's storyline, something we hadn't seen before, and not, feeding the old characters to us. As much as we love them, like I had mentioned before, we've seen them save the world several times. So they've been up against end of the world situations, or the insurmountable odds, the mountain they have to climb to beat some boss. We've seen that so many times that you can only do it in so many games before there's no flair, there's no spice there anymore. It's like we don't really care to see Chris Redfield go against the big boss, or Leon save the person again. It's played out. So giving us something fresh was a good idea, and I'd like to see that going forward. Now, I don't mind seeing them come back in DLC, but we're yet to determine that, to see how the new Not a Hero goes. If we get to see some resolution of these characters. As far as seeing Ethan in the future, I think Ethan's storyline is done. The only thing I want left from Ethan is if in the next game or in the DLC, obviously they were picked up by somebody from Umbrella. What it looks like it's supposed to be Chris, but we don't know. It's got an Umbrella logo. Mia has ties to Umbrella. At some point, he's going to wind up in some research facility, like as a prisoner, and he's going to get killed. That's all I got to say. His resolution is we're going to read a report or see a video of him getting wasted somehow.
So basically, he's going to become the next Itchy Tasty.
Yeah, Itchy Tasty, or he might become an actual bioweapon himself at some point, a failed one or something like that. I think Mia has more of a storyline to go from than what he does, because she actually has ties to what we understand with Umbrella. And the research and all that, not Umbrella specifically, but the BOWs and things that we've come to understand as the bad guys, right? So she has more to go off of, but I would like to see new characters, new situations, going back to the whole Resident Evil concept, that this is not these characters in these situations against this enemy. It is a concept of characters in a scary situation against all variations of monsters and enemies. So I would like to see that. As far as the most overhyped, as much as I love 4, and we've all kind of hit on this, I'm going to go with the same route. 4 is amazing. If you look up top horror games, any list, 4 is on that list. It's one of the best all-time PS2 games ever made, highest selling, and one of the best Resident Evil games ever made. But I have to agree that the hype is too much, because going back and playing it, as much as I enjoyed it, there's a lot of aspects of that game that sucked. Ashley is, oh my God, horrible. I called her, I changed her name from Ashley to Kenny because she wears orange and green like Kenny does from South Park, and she's constantly dying. So it's true. Like the whole game I'm calling her Kenny now, and I hated babysitting her and escorting her. Like, why would you make me do that? Even Sherry wasn't that bad, and she was like 7 years old.
I ain't getting paid enough for this shit.
Woman, fucking fend for yourself.
What do you expect? She was the president's daughter, like a girl that's like rich and like only 21 years old.
I expect some Krav Maga skills and some weapon training. That's it. Defend yourself.
Exactly.
And then, you know, like Tony had said, later in the game, you start to get that feel where it went from being a Resident Evil feel to more of an action feel. Like when you get to the whole base thing, I'm like, why am I fighting guys with machine guns instead of, you know, like the villagers were okay to a point. At least they were still zombie-esque. They were like Land of the Dead zombies from Romero, where they were learning skills. You know, they were able to walk around with weapons of machetes and axes. And the one dude with the chainsaw, that was intimidating. When you put an armored zombie with a chain gun, a Gatling gun, that kind of kills the feel, you know, and it really started to shift that Resident Evil feel that we loved to an action-oriented game, and it just started to go downhill. I still love it. It's still iconic. It's still a great game, but I think that one is overhyped.
And can I just add quick?
Yeah.
We do not need any more ports. Capcom, please stop.
Yeah, they're just getting. Now the next one we're gonna get is on the Tiger. We're gonna get a new one with that on it.
A new version of the Tiger.
Yeah. I guess if I would want to see, I would want to see Ethan's story progress if they gave a character to Ethan and it wasn't just, you know, a faceless character who is just kind of supposed to be the person playing. I really want them to add a story to him, so I would be interested in seeing if that actually continued and say he was doing something and she was doing something and they didn't know. Like, they could progress on that. I would like to see characters come back for sure, but, you know, it doesn't have to focus around, you know, previous characters. I do want to see new characters, but just, you know, with that thrown in here and there. Basically, that's it. Yes, progress it as long as there's a good story and you actually give a character to Ethan. Mia was okay, but, you know, add a little more. As far as most overrated Resident Evil game, I'd have to go with 4 as well. I remember playing it for the first time, really enjoying it, but there's some things I didn't like about it. For the most part, I really did like it, and I still like it to this day. But I'd have to say I had a better time with 5 just because I did play co-op with it. And if you play co-op with it, that's the way you're supposed to play. So that was much more enjoyable, and I do feel like 5 progressed the actual storyline more than 4 did. Even if there's boulder punching and shit like that, you know, you still got, you know, to see what happened to Jill. You got to kill Wesker, you know, and 4 was just basically save the president's daughter and then escape. The whole side story.
The only thing that ties 4 into the series is Leon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was a completely...
You know, I think that's actually my biggest problem with the game. It doesn't really have any ties, whereas 5, it was basically finishing off, you know, what we know and love.
Exactly. It wasn't a big deal, but I would much rather, you know, like when I remember playing through 5, I had to give it a few goes before I actually got into it. But when I got into it, I had a really good time playing it. And I remember thinking as I was playing through, like, hey, there's like a lot of story in here. Yeah, there's some silly things, but overall, it does a really good job on kind of where these characters would be, you know, if the story kept progressing this way. So I really like 5, and that's why I say 4 is overrated, because I think I had a better time with 5. But, you know, whatever. People like 4, people like 5, but that's just my opinion.
And we're not trashing 4. 4 is still an amazing
not.
game, and it's an integral part of what Resident Evil is. It's just, it's always on those lists. It's always in the top 10.
Yeah.
It's always the best for this, best for that. The defining moment. No, it's not. It's not.
No.
Not all that in a bag of chips. All right, it's more like a
Exactly.
6-inch sub and maybe a water bottle.
6-inch sub.
So far we got 3 votes for 4 and 1 for 6, correct?
Yeah, I would give 6, but I just don't feel like I haven't really talked to anybody that really enjoyed 6.
Yeah, there's no hype for those.
That's what I was thinking when Tony was saying that. I'm thinking to myself, this game was critically panned.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is people that really do like it. I see more people liking 4 than 6.
Right, but Tony knows those people that like 6, so he had to come to that point.
Yeah,
saying
we could
6 is
also
garbage.
4. People would have hated on our
like I said,
podcast.
it's just weird to see like all these people, and I was like, well, what about 4? Because I mean, like if I had to like give like an honest opinion and everything like that, you know, like if I had to like go about it, I would probably say that 4 is as well out of the new 3, everything like 4, 5, and 6 and everything. But like I just keep seeing all these people on like DeviantArt and Tumblr and Twitter and all these different places, and even at conventions, and you know they're all talking about how much they love 6 and how 6 was great. And I was like, you do realize that game had a lot of fucking issues.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you know, I start to realize at one point that, like, you know, a lot of the people are just like, they're not going to admit when, like, I mean, I like games like that are bad and everything. Don't get me wrong. I've got a lot of games in my library that are bad games, but I enjoy playing them. One of the best examples I can give, Street Fighter Cross Tekken. That game is complete garbage, but my friends and I fucking love playing that game.
Yeah.
So, like, it's it is what it is. You know, people's like just don't want to admit like when a game is bad.
Yeah.
Now, before we close this
That
out,
happens.
I think we should touch on this because somebody's eventually going to ask us this question.
Sure.
Don't go into too much detail. Just give what you think it is. What do you guys think is the most underrated Resident Evil?
Ooh.
Oh, I'll take the helm on this one.
Oh, I know.
I think for me, it's Resident Evil. Like, well, in general, it's Resident Evil 3, because 3 kind of came out in that section where 1 was great, 2 was a hit, and the hype of 2 was still there. Again, I can create this like a Final Fantasy scenario. Final Fantasy 7 came out and blew people's minds for so long that it overshadowed Final Fantasy 8 and 9. Like, I don't know a lot of people who say they like Final Fantasy and actually played 8 and 9. They just played 7 because that 7 was just this amazing game. The 2 follow-ups just couldn't live up to it, And I've met a lot of people who didn't play 3, they knew of it, but they just never played it. Even more so than the people who never played Remake on the GameCube. I feel that 3 is very underrated by a lot of people, and it's a great game.
Oh yeah, absolutely it
for
is.
sure.
Because there's like, I won't get into the how and why it is, but there's so much content and so much difference from the first 2 games, where a lot of people will say, well, it's kind of like a what do we used to call it back in the day? Expansion pack. They kind of would call 3 the expansion pack of 2. And I was like, okay, I can respect that and agree to that as well. But it still had a lot to do. But then you get like, you have the fame of 2. 3 comes out, not a lot of people play it. Code Veronica's coming out on the Sega Dreamcast. And people are like, oh man, it looks awesome. Claire's back, because Claire was a huge hit in 2. So
Right.
I felt that 3, didn't get the respect it deserved at the time. As years went on, yes, like people started discovering it, but during the initial time and everything for the first, like, at least I want to say 5 years of that game's life, I just didn't know a lot of people who played it.
I'm going to second that note as well. To go into it on my end, I think that you're right on the nose with it. 3 is probably the most underrated, but also it's highly recognized, mainly because people that when they look at it, they think of Nemesis. Nemesis was a cool concept and a really good addition, and that's what they all focus on. But there was so much more to it. You had different variations of story based on choices. You had a much more fleshed out Raccoon City with a lot more unresolved stories and resolved stories of survivors coming across certain people, having the opportunity to save people. You had the mercenaries, you had Nikolai and the Watchdogs. Carlos was a little bit hit or miss. Carlos was to me a cool character back then, but then when I go back and play it, I'm like, Carlos was a dumbass. Like, did you really, like, dude, you are in the apocalypse right now. Hell has come to your Earth in front of you, and you're gonna hit on this chick. Like, come on now.
It's my accent. It drives the ladies wild.
Yeah, I'm like, what? It was cool when I was like, back in the day as a kid playing. I was like, that dude's like, that's my 90s action hero right there. But no, it's not cool. So, but yeah, I think that it's, although I wouldn't really say it's so much underrated because everybody still puts on the list as, it's a great Resident Evil game compared to some of the garbage ones we've gotten. But there was so many cool concepts and things that they introduced in that game. The story was actually pretty long in a way, and I think people were also disappointed because you didn't get to see Chris. You just basically got Jill. You didn't get to see anybody from Resident Evil 2. They killed Brad. People were disappointed. No. Was anybody disappointed that Brad died? I don't think so.
No,
Hell no.
We were more impressed to see that he came back and how he wound up as a zombie.
Yeah,
if you unlocked him.
We needed him to die for the key.
Yeah, we need a closure. So, but yeah, I think that it deserves a lot more praise, considering that it wasn't even supposed to be Jill's story, and it was forced for the most part because of contract obligations, and it actually came out to be a really good game. I will always remember in the top probably 3 moments of atmosphere and feeling the dread of a Resident Evil as when Jill is in the church laying on the table on the altar and Carlos steps out into the rain for the first time. It's always like that feeling of just despair, and it will always resonate with me.
That's
really
a good way
cool.
of putting it.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough because I would say Resident Evil 3, but to me, I never felt like that was really underrated. But I guess, I don't know, maybe I wasn't paying attention when it came out. I just liked it so much. I know Code Veronica was super underrated because it came out on the Dreamcast and it did okay, but that's kind of when, like I said, people were complaining about the same formula and they decided to go with 4. I'm pretty comfortable with saying, even though they finally re-released it, but the Resident Evil 1 remake that came out on GameCube, now they re-released it and it's doing really well, but I feel like that game, if it wouldn't have came out on the GameCube and would have came out on the PlayStation 2 at the time, would have been much bigger than it is today. Like, now people are seeing how good it is.
Right, that's a good point.
Yeah, like they're finally seeing, you know, like in my opinion, that's the best made Resident Evil game. It literally is everything
it really
good.
is.
Yeah, it's everything good about the first one, and it's just basically perfected. And I feel like that kind of got robbed by being on the GameCube, and it kind of held it back. Like I said, now it's out, but it's still, I don't know. I feel like it would have been better on the PS2. That's, in my opinion, Resident Evil 1 remake.
I remember having a strong resentment for a long time because I wanted to play Zero and the Resident Evil remake so bad, but they were on the GameCube, which I didn't have. So it never occurred to me that those could be underrated because they were never ones I got to play until recently when they got sent over to the PS4. So
yeah, like I said, they're doing really well now, but I just feel like, I don't know, it could have did even better if it was handled properly the first time.
As usual, I gotta be the odd man out. You guys all went for the classics.
Yeah.
I gotta say Revelations 2.
Oh.
It was perfect for me. It was the best one since Code Veronica. It felt like Capcom were trying to experiment to see if the horror can actually work with the over-the-shoulder mechanics.
Yeah.
It kind of shied away from the action. It brought Claire back. Sure, her character was kind of butchered, but at the same point, it was nice actually bringing back a character from the past we haven't seen in, almost 10, 11 years.
True.
And then we had Barry.
makes sense, yeah.
And, you know, the raid mode, that was phenomenal. I had a blast playing that with JJ.
Yeah, that was
really good.
They really did an overhaul on that because playing raid mode on the 3DS version or even the PS3 or 360 or even the Wii U version of the original Revelations was a pain in the ass because you couldn't level up. You get to that one point where you're so high that you have to keep playing these levels and you're not getting anywhere. They balanced it out a lot better in Revelations 2.
You know, going back to that, you know, I liked it a lot with the Alex Wesker character because her evolved form, she kind of reminded me of Lisa Trevor, and she was genuinely terrifying. Like when she was whispering Natalia.
Yeah, and she would just like freaking pop up everywhere and just pimp smack Barry off of fucking cliffs and shit.
Yeah.
It's just my strong hand.
And then, you know, people were complaining about how Capcom were releasing it, you know, weekly. My opinion is, why are you bitching about that when, you know, Telltales and other companies take like 3 to 4 months per episode? We were getting an episode once per week.
Right,
Exactly.
I don't mind episodic if it's quality.
Exactly, and Revelations 2 was quality. It was a lot of fun, and that ending and the throwback dialogue, like with Barry, who's the master of unlocking now?
Fan
You know,
service.
I was almost a Claire sandwich. Oh, does Barry tell everybody that story?
Yep.
It's
That's
like
true.
Barry's dad joke. Hey, you were almost a sandwich.
I don't know. I just feel like a lot of people just gave it way too much flack. Sure, it wasn't a AAA title, but it doesn't need to be, you know, freaking AAA to be a good game.
Sure, I think a lot of people just kind of put off too the fact that like it didn't look as polished as like its predecessor, the first Revelations, because it was kind of like a budget title.
6 was up at the same time too, and 6 is very cinematic, and you know, all those graphics weren't perfect. It was much more impressive than what Revelations 2 had put out.
Yeah, like, you know, in Revelations 2, I mean, like, you know, I watched the cutscenes and I'm like, man, it's pretty dark. Even like when you like pump up the lighting on like the screen and everything, it's still a very dark game, and I understand why, because you're going for dark and atmospheric, but you still can't really see a lot, even during the cutscenes and stuff.
That's the weird thing too. Like, people were saying there was no replayability with it.
Yeah, there is.
They are so freaking wrong. Resident Evil Revelations 2 is actually my second most played game. I have over 92 hours clocked into Steam.
Damn.
That's a lot.
Holy crap baskets.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I remember playing that with you, AJ, and I was just like, holy shit, this extra mode is really good. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I get a hashtag holy crap baskets, please?
Yes.
Let's get that trending right now.
Start that. Okay, I guess that's it. Is that everything, guys?
That's everything until the next one.
Awesome.
That sounds about right.
That was a lot of fun. I want to thank you guys for being here, obviously, to chat. I want to thank everybody for listening. We really appreciate it. We were blown away by the good feedback we got with the first episode, and the reason why we're doing this more often is because everybody likes it, and we just appreciate you guys taking time to listen to us. So thank you very much. I guess we'll go around now and do our plugs. Like I said, I'm JJ. Okay, since we recorded this podcast, the Residents of Evil URL has changed. Now you can follow Residents of Evil on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch at ROEnetwork. ROEnetwork. We're also going to be setting up a Discord here sometime soon, so keep on the lookout for that. Let's go to AJ now.
All right, like I said before, I run the Resident Evil 1.5 series community page. You can find me on there at facebook.com/Resident Evil 1.5 page. And I also help with a Tomb Raider fan site called Survivor Reborn. Also, you can look that up on Facebook or go to tombRaider/reborn.com.
All right, and I'm also on the Resident Evil 1.5 page, so you can find my posts there at all times. Pretty much just usually post a lot of cosplay or funny Resident Evil pictures that I come across and everything, and AMVs once in a while because I come across a lot of good ones of those. You can find me on Twitter at @1_big_boss, and same for my Instagram. It's the same as my Twitter. You'll see me post a lot of video game content as well as my photography on there. As for my actual photography page, you can find me at facebook.com/Lazaro Studios. That's LAZZARO, and I don't have to spell studios because I'll screw it up.
And I'm Ollie from Ollie Pride Gaming, Twitch broadcaster at twitch.tv/Ollie Pride Gaming. That's ALI Pride Gaming. Also an editor on the Residents of Evil Facebook page, and possibly soon to be taking on the reins of the Residents of Evil Twitch channel, but keep your ears open for that one. That's a work in progress right now. Basically, if you guys want to swing by, what I like to stream is horror games. So if you're a fan of Resident Evil, you're a fan of the horror games in general, come on by and check it out. We have a good time with that.
Good call, Ollie. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, we're going to get the Twitch going, so definitely check out Residents of Evil 2236 on Twitch. Ollie's going to be taking that over. But yeah, thank you, everybody. We hope to see you guys back at the next episode. Other than that, yeah, have a good night. Thanks for listening.